Good evening. Welcome to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and as always promised, we have a very special lady with us. And I'm going to introduce her to you in just a few moments. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this first half. I'd like to thank Villa Basque Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo. It is delicious, right here in Carson City. As well as Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, aged balsamic vinegar, and international health teas. So drop on by. Now let's introduce Debbie May. Debbie, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Debbie has been on our show before with her husband, and they are the owners, and they are part of our sponsorship as well with Apex, which is knowing how to handle your own personal safety when you're out in a concerned environment. Let's put it that way. And Debbie, I invited you back because you do have a working knowledge of guns. You have a knowledge of the laws here in the state of Nevada concerning guns. And this is an issue that's not going to go away, apparently, okay, in terms of our Second Amendment rights. So I know when I just talk with some of my friends, they really don't know the whole story. They know part of it or they're misinformed. So right away, help us understand, if you would, here in the state of Nevada, what does it take to own a gun lawfully?
Well, you can own a gun going through a background check through normal channels. You pass a background check, you can own a gun. Then there's different types of gun ownership. There's owning a gun, and Nevada's an open carry state. So once you own a gun lawfully, you can carry a loaded weapon as long as it's out in the open. However, there are buildings that you cannot take them into, schools, banks. You need to check laws before you open carry anywhere to make sure that you're following the letter of the law.
Right.
There's also a CCW, so for a concealed weapon. Now you would apply for that for the sheriff in your county, in which case you have permission then to carry a weapon concealed, loaded on your body at any time.
Okay.
That being said, though, you shouldn't do either of those unless you're trained.
Yes, and I don't care, although I admire and I respect the legal gun owners, I don't personally own a gun of my own because I've not had the training yet. And I am interested in gaining that so that I can be effective with a gun if need be. All right. Now, what if you travel outside of the state of Nevada with a gun? What do you need to know?
You need to check the laws in the states that you'll be traveling through. They're very different. They are not universal, and do not assume that they are universal. So if you're planning on taking any extended trip through different cities, perhaps you're going to be in an RV, you need to check with those states to make sure that you're not breaking the law at any point.
Because what could happen?
Well, you could be arrested. If you were carrying a concealed loaded weapon and you're pulled over in another state that doesn't allow that, or they don't recognize your permit, then a police officer, that's obviously a threat to them, and then they could actually arrest you.
Okay. So there is a big brouhaha in our country right now about guns in general. And some people feel that there are just too many guns in the country. Other people feel that if you go through a background check to carry a gun lawfully, you're certainly not going to be one of these armed robbers that go into a bank or into a grocery store, etc. You've taken the time to be ID'd, and have a really thorough background check on your history, your personal history, etc., if there's been any run-in. So those people feel that their rights are being trampled upon. And then there are others who are in law enforcement who really say, you know, we have not been represented fairly about guns because the media and other people who don't know exactly what they're talking about have mislabeled many guns that are not assault weapons. So we have kind of a big bag of mixed emotions and information that's not always correct out there. Help us understand, Debbie. Right now, I was reading an article currently where in the state of Colorado, the law enforcement officers, the sheriffs in the counties, and it's the vast majority of the sheriffs in that particular state who have a lot of hunters, like we do here in Nevada, like where I used to live in New York State, those law enforcement officers feel as if they cannot support extra laws, extra banning of guns, because we already have enough laws if we would enforce them. Is that a viable approach to the gun problem? Not having further laws with which to restrict guns, but enforcing the laws that we do have. Do we have sufficient laws to make those arrests when need be and to protect the public when need be? Do we need more laws?
I don't think we do. I think we have more than enough laws to protect our rights and individuals. I think that if we would take that money and put it into other resources, we may be able to combat some of the problems that we do have. Like you mentioned, it's not usually the lawful gun owner, the person who went through the background check, who went through the training, who's going to stop and rob your 7-Eleven, who's going to do a home invasion, who's going to be an active shooter in a workplace because they're angry. Those are not generally the population who are creating those problems in society. So if we channeled that money into other avenues, we might be able to actually reduce all crime, not just gun crimes, instead of taking this money and trying to infringe even more on people's rights. As soon as you tell people they can't have something, they're going to want it. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. That's how it works. So the harder they push to take away the guns, the harder people are going to say, wait a minute, I should get to keep that. And on the Second Amendment, we do have a right to bear arms and protect ourselves.
Right. Now, in my just general public conversations with public officials and law enforcement officers and just friends and family, I'm always interested in their opinions. So when I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, there are enough laws on the books to enforce. We just need to enforce them.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the right to bear arms is a right. And I know that oftentimes I read in the paper that there are plea bargains, that if we didn't have the plea bargaining episodes as often as we do, just enforcing the laws that we have and reducing the plea bargaining, we would cut down on the amount of crime. Does that make sense or not?
Absolutely. When we take, whether it's a gun violation, whether it's drugs, alcohol, driving under the influence, when we start minimizing those down to where people barely get a slap on the hands, what's the deterrent from creating for them to do any crime at all?
Or to do the same thing all over again.
Exactly. If you're just going to slap my hand and throw me in a jail for 30 days, it's not really a deterrent to someone who feels they have no other means other than to commit crime.
So how often do you work with guns? I mean, what is your background in guns?
My background is basically just been growing up around guns and feeling comfortable and having family with guns and being interested myself in the workings. I'm the type of person that has to know how something works. I want to know everything. I read the manuals. I'm that type of person. So when I was around guns, I wanted to make sure I felt comfortable. I had to know how they worked. I had to know how to take them apart. I had to know how to clean them. I wanted to know all of that for myself so that I, as an independent person, could feel comfortable with that.
Well, I'm assuming, and again, correct me here if I'm wrong, then you must have grown up with a family that it was very important for them that if their children chose to use guns, wanted to be around guns and use them for hunting, etc., that those children should know exactly what the intent of a gun is and how to appropriately legalize it.
Absolutely. I grew up that you knew from a very young age you didn't touch them. I mean, if it wasn't mine, I didn't touch it. And if you picked it up and pointed it in any direction, you better be willing to kill what you're aiming at, whether that be an animal, whether that be, something, a bear or something, in you, whatever it might be, that was something deadly and that you could do bodily harm.
So when did you own your first gun?
I owned my very first gun when I want to say I didn't own my own gun until probably 21.
Okay, and you went through the background check
Absolutely.
and all of that.
Went through the background check, went through a class to make sure I was comfortable. I had friends who went gun shopping with me because I'm one of those women who I want to be recognized for what I know and what I don't know. And unfortunately, had I gone in by myself, they were trying to lead me towards something that wouldn't have been appropriate for myself, whether it had been too big, it was more expensive. I knew enough, and I took friends with me who were very comfortable so that I bought something that was appropriate for me and that I would feel comfortable with.
So, in other words, in a roundabout way, you're also saying to us, don't attempt, if you're new at thinking about guns, take knowledgeable people with you so that not only do they make you more familiar with what is your type or the weight of the gun, the make of the gun, but also it allows those gun shop owners to recognize that they're also dealing with a knowledgeable customer.
Absolutely.
Okay? They don't try to sell you something that you really shouldn't have.
Right, and based on that need, Apex, we developed a class, a one day that we really started to have a lot of inquiries from women. How do I find something right for me? What do I know is right? And the first thing I would say is do not go to a gun store by yourself. No one knows what's right for you, but unfortunately people might try to sell you something that's not right for you. And there's nothing worse than having something you won't use or that you're afraid to use.
Okay, now you're introducing the subject of women, which I like. It never occurred to me, I want to be very honest with you, Debbie, never occurred to me to even think about a gun until I came into the state of Nevada, where guns are a part of the culture in many different aspects, okay? And from a historical point of view, we always saw, by and large, men, but women also knew how to use a rifle in defense of their homestead or in defense of their family, and did so if necessary. Now, there are women who approach me because I did take one of your classes, and it did develop in me an insightfulness towards, okay, Carol, how do you really feel about using a gun? Would you? And the answer to me was, yes, I would, if it came right down to protecting those that I love, if they were being threatened. And I also had to ask myself, would you aim to kill? That's a strong question, because I have a temper, but I'm a nonviolent person, okay? And my temper is short-lived. So I had to think about myself in terms of, would I aim a gun with the intent to kill? And yes, I would. Yes, I would. Now, I might not have said that 15 or 20 years ago, because women were not so much in the forefront of gun users. Now they are. Where in your line of work do you hear women talking about guns or the possibility of learning how to use them? Does it come to you through the media, through events that happen in our country? Do women approach you out of a natural sense of, Debra knows how to use guns. She teaches a class. What do you think, Debra? Do I need to know, as a woman, do I need to know how to do this? How do you deal with those questions and those events?
I get them in a multitude of ways, so pretty much every way you've just described. A lot of people who know me know that I have a background and I'm comfortable around guns, I'm comfortable around a lot of different things, and so they do seek me out to ask those types of questions, but also events we've had, places that we've had Apex out, in public, and women will come up just out of curiosity, and that strikes up the best conversation because you can tell they're a little hesitant, and you say, what are you thinking about? Well, I'm on my own. I want to be able to protect myself. And I think that's what's driven a lot of women to be comfortable with guns or want to approach it, because you can't wait for someone to protect you. You need to take it into your own hands. And so these women reach out, and I have that conversation and say, well, have you talked to anybody? Have you ever touched a gun? Have you gone to a store? That's why we try to steer them towards going with a friend, a family member, or taking our one day where we go with you to a gun store and say, this is right, this isn't right. How does that feel? But making them understand that don't buy something you're going to be afraid of. Don't buy something you're not going to use. Protecting yourself is more than a gun. It starts here, and then having the right tools with you to protect yourself.
And we're going to come back to that in the second half, Debbie, and especially for women who are mothers out there, because there's a responsibility with a gun in the home or the knowledge of how to use a gun that your children are going to pick up on. And that's huge in a woman's mind. How do I handle this with my children? Don't go away. We're going to answer those questions. We'll be right back.
Are you ready? Football is back, and it's your turn to score with Carson Nuggets touchdown to cash drawings, where you can win up to $50,000. Come down every Friday and Saturday for your chance to win big.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
Join us at the Carson Nugget for The Prize is Right, our 3 million point swipe and win giveaway happening every Sunday through Thursday. You can win up to 100,000 points instantly at our kiosk, and all you have to do is swipe. Only at the Carson Nugget.
Welcome back to the second portion of Women to Women. We're here with Debra May, an expert in guns, especially for the female knowledge of the guns, but she's well trained in what she does. And we're going to delve into the female or the woman issue a little bit more. But first, I'd like to thank, for the second half of our program, our sponsors, carsonnow.org, which is the 24/7 place to go for the latest that's happening here in Carson City itself, as well as the Nevada Peel and the Record Courier. Those are our loyal supporters who always encourage us to shop locally, support those small businesses, which are the backbone of this country. So let's turn back to Debra. Debra, we were just about to get into how these classes evolved, okay? What happened either in your personal life or between your discussions with you and your husband, Jeff May, as to why are these classes needed now?
I'd say we developed them based on the need for self-protection, self-awareness, Jeff's background in fire and law and paramedic, and really seeing that happen on a day-to-day basis. And now with all the events we continue to have, we knew that teaching people how to protect themselves, and not in a self-defense way where I have to take someone down by my own power, but by using your smarts and a couple of techniques that you can protect yourself, or at least give yourself a better edge to coming out surviving. So that's how the primary class came about. And as we were teaching the class, we got a lot of inquiries from women about guns, because we do use training guns in the classes, and they weren't comfortable with guns. And the first thing I say is, have you ever held a real gun? No, I'm afraid, but I would like a gun. So as we kept having more and more women talk about, I don't have anybody to go with me, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, we developed a class to actually go with the woman to a gun store. We help them pick out what's right for them, what feels good, what they're not afraid of. Go to the range, learn how to shoot it, learn how to take it down and clean it, so that when they walk away at the end of the day, they feel good and comfortable with something that they have, as opposed to going on their own where they might get something that's too big, too heavy, that they end up locking in a drawer somewhere that they're afraid to use. And it becomes another weapon to be used against them instead of something that they can use to protect themselves.
Well, you know, and there is that mystique about a gun that has been with us for centuries. And just to pick up that cold piece of steel and to feel the weight of it, and to recognize that perhaps this small little handgun can end a person's life or can injure them, takes a grasping of your inner self to deal with, okay, I don't want to be afraid of this gun. I want to be able to be knowledgeable about it and to use it if I need to, but that means I have to be trained. I need to go out in the training grounds. Now, my question earlier in the first half was, you know, when children see their parents, your children, if you have children, have seen their father with a firearm. Have they seen their mother with a firearm?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in bringing those children up with guns or a gun in the house, how did you do that?
You bring them up just like you would anything else when you have a small child. You have to teach them right from wrong. If you hide it away, there's always that curiosity of what is that? What is it that they lock away? Instead, you teach them from a young age, young enough to comprehend it, but you teach them how dangerous it is, but you take them out also to show them what does it do. You teach them how to shoot. You teach them how to be comfortable, but also to understand the magnitude of what they're holding in their hands. Something not to be afraid of, but something also not to be played with.
And this is a process, I would think.
Absolutely. It takes time. You know, you start out little by little, but you take away that mystique of it being some, you know, hidden thing in the closet that, oh, mom and dad aren't home, let's go touch it. Because you've essentially trained your child how to see it and what to see it as, that it is a weapon, that there is a right way and a wrong way, just like you teach them to stay away from the stove and other things like that. You teach over time and by doing it the right way, not hiding it away from them, hoping for the best. You teach them what it is.
Okay. And that takes some level-headedness on the parts of their parents, because friends will come into the home as well. And I can see a woman or a parent saying, I'm worried about their friends coming in and seeing the gun there. How do you suggest we handle a situation like that? And I'm thinking, in particular, I'll make this very brief, about 2 years ago in my hometown, when I went back for a visit, 2 youngsters, 2 boys that were in junior high. One would walk over early in the morning to get on the bus, walk to the bus, and the father had a gun collection in a closet, but it was unlocked. And one of those boys walked over, not the son of the father, but the friend that came over, and took out a gun, and the youngster whose father owned the cabinet didn't think he would do too much with it, and he really didn't know how to handle the situation. The cabinet should have been locked. It wasn't, and the child turned around and in a playful way shot the gun, it was loaded, and killed the son of the father. So this is something that is not unheard of anymore. And in raising a child around guns, should we keep those cabinets locked?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You have to be a responsible gun owner. You'll get a lot of people out there, though, in the media that will say, but see, that's exactly what we're talking about. If that gun hadn't been in that home, that wouldn't have happened. Are we going to take knives out of the home? Are we going to take steak knives and dinner knives? It's the same concept. It's what you teach your children.
Exactly.
But in that is being a responsible gun owner to know I can't control what training or education anyone else has had. So when I'm not in my home, I will lock them up regardless. If there's people in the house, not in the house, as a responsible gun owner, you will do that every single time.
Now, women are sometimes very difficult to work with because they have preset conditions. How do you look at us as a force out there? And if I'm alone shopping, my husband will always say to me, Carol, look all around the parking lot. I don't want you going out shopping at night, but sometimes I do for groceries, last minute thing. And the thought occurs to me, do I know how to handle someone who comes up from behind? And it's happened time and over to people that I know. It hasn't happened to me. But because I took the class, I do feel a lot more confident. And I practice on a daily basis some of those moves that your husband, Jeff May, taught me, just so I don't become rusty, just so it doesn't leave my mind. What are some of the greatest factors or facts that you can give to women that they should be confident with a gun, just as a man should be confident, and just as we, as citizens of a country, we are law-abiding people. Those of us who register have background checks, and it's a privilege to own a gun, just as it's a privilege to drive a car. But I have to be licensed to drive that car. What do women need to know? What are the facts out there about women and their environment?
You have a right to have a weapon to protect yourself. I mean, that is the Second Amendment. You have the right to protect yourself.
Okay.
And I think with the way that the government goes now and funding, the police aren't going to be there to save you as quickly as you would hope were that they used to be. And you should take your protection, your own protection, into your own hands and be confident and comfortable. So that means getting the training, go to classes. We do CCW classes and tactical shooting classes so that you don't just learn how to carry a weapon, you learn how to use it responsibly and in different scenarios. Feel comfortable with what you have. If you buy something and you're afraid to use it, you'll never use it. But as women, we need to take control of our own protection. I'm not saying it's all women's lib and we have no one out there that should have our back. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is own it yourself so that you can protect yourself, you can protect your children, you can be an asset to those in your house if you need more than, what if it's a home invasion and there's 3 or 4 people? And yes, your husband might be armed. Is there anything you can do? Whether it be being a gun owner or coming to a class and being taught the observation techniques and the different techniques that we might show you to how to react in those scenarios, you could help protect yourself and your family.
Okay, Debbie, is there an email address or is there a number that if women out there are looking to take these classes and we've perked their interest, and I certainly hope that we have, how do they get in contact with you?
You can reach us through apexscf@gmail.com. Again, that's apexscf@gmail.com.
Okay.
We will put you on the email list. We are constantly doing classes. In fact, at the end of this month, we're doing a Women's Day Out 90-minute free class. And we focus solely on situations that women will encounter, helping you just to be a little smarter and a little safer. In everyday things you do, whether it's a grocery store, whether it's the parking lot, things you might not think about.
Is there one event, one set of circumstances, or one place in particular that women can expect, if they're not smart, to be a victim?
I would say parking lots. And whether that be you're coming out of a grocery store or just in a parking lot at the end of the day, women, we are multitaskers. We're doing 5 things at once, and we are not observant of our surroundings, and sometimes that's all it takes. I might be rushing out of the building to get into my car because I need to take a quick look at the piece of mail before I run to the post office, before I go to the grocery store, whatever it might be. I'm doing 5 things because we have so much to do. I'm gonna miss that someone just followed me out of the building, or that there's a van next to my vehicle with the door open and there's someone approaching me. I'm just not observing that. And I think that that's probably the biggest scare for me when I think about my mom, or I think about my sister, or my daughter, making sure that you observe always and be prepared always.
I think we do, not just because we live in the United States of America, which is becoming upsetting sometimes with the events that occur, but there is the last thing in our mind after grocery shopping or Christmas shopping is that there's an opportunist waiting.
Absolutely.
And one time back in Ohio, I had finished my Christmas shopping. My husband was about to pick me up, but he was at the far end of the parking lot, and it was a covered parking lot, and it was dark. There were some lights, and I had seen a lone security car, 20 minutes before, but nothing since that time. And as I exited the building, instinctively I understood I had my arms full of packages, I had my shoulder bag over, and sure enough, up behind me came and slipped the strap of the shoulder bag. But right away, didn't harm me, but I lost all my credit cards, all my cash, our whole identity.
Everything.
And he disappeared, or that person disappeared into the shadows. When my husband drove up, I was stunned. And I recognized that had I looked in all directions before I went out, it would have been a much smarter idea to have used my cell phone to call my husband to come pick me right up at the door, because he always would.
Or you might have gone back in the store.
Yes.
Had you seen someone, because
Yes.
being obviously indoors
Yeah.
and around other people could have been a better safe option for you.
And I considered myself very fortunate just to have had my bag sliced.
Right, because you can
and take-
replace that.
Yes, that's right. Well, Debbie, I want to say thank you so much again for coming back
Oh,
here.
thanks for having me again. I
All right.
appreciate it.
And I know that my time is coming to meet with you again, okay, for some more training, because I'm sensing very strongly in myself that women need to be just as equipped, just as well armed, and I have such admiration for those women who serve with guns, legal guns, and I'd like to be one of them. So thank you.
We look forward to seeing you and helping you make that
Thank
journey.
you. Thank you. And I hope that we've given important information to our listening audience. Until next week with a brand new guest, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.